Welcome everyone. Welcome to the Ordinary Council meeting of the 20th of March 2018. Members of the public should note that the Council recordings and publishes Council meetings via webcast to enhance the accessibility of Council meetings to the broader Wellington community. These recordings are also archived and may be published on Council's website for viewing by the public or used for publicity or information purposes. At the appropriate times during the meeting, members of the gallery may address the Council, at which time their image, comments or submissions will be recorded. Members of the public who are not in attendance at the Council meeting but who wish to communicate with their Council via the webcasting chat room should lodge their questions or comments early in the meeting to ensure that their submissions can be dealt with at the end of the meeting. Please could gallery visitors and councillors ensure that mobile phones and other electronic devices are turned off or in silent mode for the duration of the meeting. Could we please stand for the acknowledgement and prayer? We acknowledge the traditional custodians of this land, the Gurnai people, and pay respects to their elders past and present. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon the Wellington Shire, its councillors, officers, staff and their families. We pray for your guidance in our decisions so that the true good of the Wellington Shire Council may result to the benefit of all residents and community groups. Amen. We have a couple of apologies. Apologies from our Mayor Caroline Crosley. She's unavailable for this meeting, and CEO David Morecambe. A3, do we have any declarations, conflicts of interest?
Yes, I'd like to declare a conflict of interest with regard to item C5.1, and that conflict is regarding duty. Thank you.
Thank you. No one else? A4, confirmation of minutes of previous council meeting.
I move that council adopt the minutes and resolutions of the ordinary council meeting of 6th of March 2018.
Thank you, Councillor Rossetti. We're a seconder. Councillor Hole. All in favour? Carried. Business arising from previous meetings? Nothing. Acceptance of late items? We don't have any acceptance of late items. Notice of motions, there are no notice of motions. A8, receiving of petitions or joint letters. There's no outstanding petitions, but we do have petitions to response to. So response to petition relocation of Rosedale, Cenotaph, Honour Wall and Flagpole. Councillor Rossetti.
Thank you, Mayor. I'm Acting Mayor, Deputy Mayor. I move that Council advise the head petitioner of the Vic Roads as the relevant road authority and planning permit applicant will amend planning permit application P2017/422 to relocate the Cenotaph, Honour Wall and Flagpole to a site immediately west of the schoolhouse building in the Prince Street Reserve.
Do we have a seconder? Thank you, Councillor McMillan. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I just want to make a comment here that it's really appreciate the input from the people in Rosedale. There's often, while we're not moving the Cenotaph ourselves, it's something that Vic Roads are doing. Clearly, they look to our guidance as to where it should go. The original recommendation we had was to the Crook Reserve. The community were very strong in saying, well, no, that didn't suit them. They'd much rather see it in the Prince Street Reserve. So. The fact that the community actually responded, put their input in, put their 2 bobs worth in, we were able to go, well, okay, that's where the community wanted, let's pop it there. So I'm really pleased to see that outcome as a result of community input and consultation. I think the outcome's a good one and look forward to that work taking place. And certainly look forward to all those works taking place on the Rosedale highway. It's sorely needed, and I think the Roads are doing great work there getting that intersection cleaned up. Thank you.
Thank you. And item A83, response to petition, objection to renaming of Park Street.
Is anyone from the gallery to speak?
No. Do you want to speak on this matter?
Yes.
Yep. So if you just state your name. Thank you.
It's Yvonne Martin, Park Street sale. I would like to speak to this item because we have several problems with it. The title alone, renaming a section of Disraeli Street sale, is quite misleading because the minutes and resultant motion include the renaming of the northern end of Park Street from the Princess Highway to Canal Road, but this is not mentioned until 2/3 of the way through the motion. We have no problem with changing the name of Canal Road, part of Disraeli Street and part of McMillan Street to Grand Canal Road Drive, beg your pardon. This proposal had only one objection, something to the tune of not thinking grand enough, which was accepted and acted upon. It is the push to change the name of the northern end of Park Street where we have a problem. Firstly, the canal does not come anywhere near Park Street. The canal terminated at what was then called Swinging Basin. From the basin westward is Flooding Creek, which has its own colourful history. But why spoil a good story with facts? And if you can make the longest canal in Australia a couple of 100 metres longer, all well and good. Councillor McMillan is down on public record as being so excited and honoured to be the man who put grand in Grand Canal Drive. Does this not smack of conflict of interest? What chance has anyone who disagrees with this push when the chairman of the Place Names Committee can totally disregard the wishes of 106 signatories, plus, according to the minutes, several other objections, and go ahead and rename the northern end of Park Street? Talk about putting the fox in charge of the hen house. Act on one objection when it suits, but disregard 106 plus when it doesn't. Can you justify this anomaly? You are all aware that there is an effort to have Park Street reinstated as the priority road at the Park Street Canal Road intersection. This will take some time to bring to fruition. We had hoped to resolve this at a local level, but are resigned to having to take this issue to a higher authority. When this happens and Park Street is reinstated, as we're hoping it will be, Grand Canal Drive, if the name change is adopted, at the northern end of Park Street, will then have to revert back to being plain old Park Street. What can be changed can be changed. We appeal to councillors to vote down this motion tonight. Thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne. So, response to petition objection to renaming of Park Street. Do I have a mover?
Anyone else? Thank you.
Thanks, Mr McMillan.
I'd like to move that Council note that the petition received objecting to the proposed renaming of part of Park Street to Grand Canal Drive has been referred to the Place Names Committee, whose report is included separately in this Council meeting agenda.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Marr. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you, and I'd like to thank Yvonne and Mr and Mrs Martin, I should say, for coming tonight. Indeed, their advocacy in regard to their street, which they're perfectly entitled to, and I have absolutely no problem with that whatsoever. I guess the question is a divorcing of the two issues here, and I'm a little confused, but I'm assuming that, as was stated, there's no real objection to the name of the street. It is really the changing of the priority roads, in which I imagine, well, there's two problems there. I'm a little confused by that because the first session is in regard to the priority street. And as I mentioned last time, and I'll mention again, there was a decision made to make the priority street, of course, the main road, which goes through here, call it Grand Canal, call it Canal, but that is indeed the priority road. That was based on the traffic patterns that go past there, and indeed on very well documented traffic management. I've been out there and had a look at it myself. I've had a check of the things. Indeed, the majority of cars seem to be going around the corner into our new canal area and not going down on Park Street. Generally, once you...
What's this got to do with the renaming?
That's what we protested against, the renaming. It has nothing to do with the orientation. We'll get to that later.
If I may be completed, thank you.
We've already done this last time.
Sorry, can we let the councillor complete what he's saying? Thank you.
As I suggested, I'll split the area into two sections. The section indeed regards to the changing the name and indeed to the priority street. My understanding is, and I do apologise if I'm repeating myself, that I think the main issue and the issue to most of the objections was in regard to the changing of the priority street. And tonight, indeed, my understanding in listening to Mrs Martin was that the intention was that she does not like Park Street going past that. I'm terribly sorry. I'll just finish then and I'll suggest this. And that is that the priority street now goes round there, from there, round the back and over through there. Now, the name of it follows whether it be Canal Road or Grand Canal Road, but the item is it must remain the same name. It can't suddenly go from one name to the next. So we're looking for one name that encapsulates that entire street. Now, yes, we did have a joint letter or a petition, or call it what you like, of 106 names, but it is confusing as to whether those people are against Grand Canal, the name, or whether they are against the suggesting of the priority street. Now, I'm hearing tonight that, of course, they also object to the name of Grand Canal. Well, so be it. However, I think the name, as suggested, and look, it's not necessarily my decision to do this. I'm fortunate enough to be able to be part of the Place Names Committee, and Grand Canal seems to be an appropriate name. As it was suggested in one of the objections, we should be thinking grander than that, we should be thinking bigger than that. Canal Road lacks the sort of gravitas that we would like, and therefore I think Grand Canal is an appropriate road. As I said, it's a little bit confusing as to whether it's the name that's the confusing thing or whether it's the priority aspect to that road. As I mentioned last time, and I'll mention again, once you determine that this be the priority road, which is determined by traffic statistics, then you must come up with one name to link that entire precinct. I think the name Grand Canal fixes all right. Anyway, as you said, this is going to be linked to the Place Names Committee, and we'll discuss that a bit later on. So, thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. A9, invited addresses, presentations or acknowledgements. I'd like to bring up an acknowledgement. Last night, the MAV held its annual Technology Awards for Excellence. These awards recognise outstanding team and individual efforts in the use of technology to improve service delivery and efficiency to local government organisations or communities. Wellington was declared a finalist in 2 categories for EDU Cloud, or EG Cloud. What is EDU Cloud? Wellington Shire Council has developed an exciting resource called EDU Cloud, which allows secondary school students to log in directly to safe, secure Wi-Fi connection that will link them to their own school network and learning resources. This enables secondary school students and teachers to work, connect, collaborate across Wellington Shire to support and enhance learning, increase independence of learning and offer opportunities previously not available to the youth of our region. As part of the redevelopment of the Port of Sale Civic Centre, inclusion of the new digital technology infrastructure to support our new EDU Cloud was achieved through the partnership with local Gippsland schools, SO Australia and BHP. Wellington Shire has been working closely with Sale College, Sale Catholic College, Gippsland Grammar, Maffra Secondary College and Yarram Secondary College to provide access for students in years 10 to 12. Wellington Shire Council is the first council in Victoria to work with local secondary schools to provide a service that provides access to the school network via super fast Wi-Fi beyond the classroom walls. Access to EduCloud will be available from the new Port of Sale Wellington Centre from May 2018, and the technology will be rolled out to other Wellington Shire libraries in Yarram, Rosedale, Hayfield, Stratford and Maffra, commencing June 2018, along with the Yarram Hub. It must be noted that some of the finalists included large Victorian councils such as the City of Melbourne, the City of Geelong, Wyndham City Council, City of Casey and Latrobe City Council. They are huge compared to our little Wellington Shire. Wellington, on the other hand, won 2 awards. Quite amazing. Collaboration of the Year for our EDU Cloud and Victorian Award for Excellence for EDU Cloud. This shows how well a smaller council like Wellington is driving an agenda of change in local government without the large budgets of other councils, but with a strong vision and passion about putting the community at the forefront of everything it does. I'd like to congratulate our team. It's a major award that we've won against other larger shires, and I think a clap for our team is well and truly warranted. A10 questions on notice. None. A11 Mayor's report. Mayor and Council activity report. Thank you, Councillor, for coming.
Thank you. I'd like to move that the Mayor and Council activities report be noted.
Seconder. Councillor Ripper. Anyone oppose that motion? All in favour? Carried.
Yes, ma'am.
You want to speak on that motion?
No, I'm happy with that. That'll be fine.
B, report of delegates. No reports of delegates this meeting. C1, Chief Executive Officer report. Councillor Rossetti.
Yes, I move that the Chief Executive Officer's report be received.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall. All in favour? Carried. Councillor Rossetti.
Just a quick mention. There's often a lot of details in these meetings in these reports, but I've been really happy to see so much more work being done around the public transport. I know we've got an agenda item coming up about the train stabling, but the fact that there's actually discussions around how these things get funded, how the additional services get through to Sale, how the bridges through to Stratford and then Bairnsdale get done, I think they're really important to our communities, and it's terrific to see so much more activity in that space. And certainly encourage more of it, because the train services in Melbourne, where a lot of the services now are being centralised, is more and more important to our community. So certainly commend the CEO and staff on the work they're doing in that space, and look forward to it continuing.
Thank you. Item C 1.2, February 2018 performance report. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I move that Council receive and note the February 2018 Council performance report as attached.
Seconder. Councillor Stevens. All in favour? Carried. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, thanks, Deputy Mayor. Look, the Council received this report, and it's really interesting to note that it comprises key highlights towards achieving of the 2017 to 2021 Council plan. And so let's just highlight a few of these. The wedge season launch was held on Friday, the 16th of February. It was a full house and an outstanding success. Alongside that, Portside Food and Wine has also opened. The Wellington Youth Summit was held on the 22nd of February with 80 people attending. And funding for the Bryhag Rec Reserve Change Rooms redevelopment was confirmed through the Community Sports Infrastructure Fund, along with a number of other positive indicators. And I think a really important indicator to report is that the art gallery visitation reported a 300% increase on the comparative prior period. If we look at the financials, the monthly statement is not as detailed as the quarterly statements. However, the year-to-date February position shows a favourable variance of some $5.6 million against the adjusted or forecast budget, with the variance being split between increases of say $3 million within capital grants being the big driver, and expenditure driven by employee costs and contractors also remained positive. This is a good position to be in for the 8 months to date, and suggests that we will have a good outcome for this financial year. Thanks, Deputy Mayor.
Thanks, Councillor Hall. Item C 2.1, Assembly of Councillors. Councillor Marr.
I move that Council note and receive the attached Assembly of Councillor records for the period 27th February 2018 to the 6th of March 2018.
Seconder, Councillor Rossetti. All those in favour? Carried. No, nothing to say. Yep. Item C 2.2, Audit and Risk Committee members.
Yeah, thanks, Ben.
Councillor Hall. Microphone.
Just getting it up on the screen so I can read it without my glasses. I recommend the Council receive and note the minutes in brief, attachment 1, and a confidential attachment at item F 1.1, Audit and Risk Committee minutes of 26th February 2018. and the information contained in the confidential attachment, item F1.1, Audit and Risk Committee minutes of 26 February 2018 of this council meeting agenda and designated under section 77 clause 2C of the Local Government Act 1989 as confidential by the General Manager of Corporate Services on 6th March 2018, and the rest as read.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Rossetti? All those in favour? Carried. Items 3... Oh, sorry, would you like to
Thanks,
speak to the
Deputy
motion?
Mayor. Look, it's pleasing to be able to report on the Audit and Risk Committee, and it's a critical committee in regard to the good governance processes of this council. The Audit and Risk Committee Charter identifies the management risk as one of the primary objectives of the Audit and Risk Committee, and it monitors risk exposure by determining if management has appropriate risk management processes. This particular meeting considered, among other things, the Strategic Internal Audit Plan. It received a report of following up agreed actions from prior audit reports. It received an extract of the VARGO reports of the 2016-2017 audit of local government, and this is a really important document. It's contained within the confidential section, but having said that, it's also in fact publicly available, and it was really pleasing to note how well Wellington performed against the strategic indicators compared to other peer councils. The committee was provided with a review of council policies, and there's a range of other activities that are included in the minutes, and I would commend the detail of these minutes. In closing, can I just note that on a rotational basis, members of the committee will provide feedback on the effectiveness of the meeting, providing, if you like, an instant feedback loop on how well that committee is performing, and the contribution of the independent members of that committee is genuinely very appreciated.
Thank you, Councillor Hall. Item C 2.3, Remuneration Committee minutes. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Acting Mayor. I move that Council note and receive the minutes from the Remuneration Committee meeting held on the 20th of February 2018 as attached, and 2, Council endorse the actions from the Remuneration Committee meeting held on the 20th of February 2018 as detailed in the attached minutes.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ripper. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Hall.
Yeah, the Remuneration Committee is, well, like all our council committees, it's one that's entrusted to perform and review the activities of the council. In this case, it's the expenditure as to where it's going, and that we're living within the budget that was put together nearly 12 months ago. And I'm pleased to say, if you have a look at what's that's up there, we have a very prudent council when you can consider other councils around us, and we're well into the second part of the 2018, and we're nearly $200,000 or over $200,000 below budget. So we're travelling very well, and it's great to see the council has been very careful on their spending.
Thanks, Councillor Hall. C 3.1, January 2018 planning decisions. Thanks, Councillor Marr.
I'd like to move that Council note the report on recent planning permit trends and planning application determinations between the 1st of January and the 31st of January 2018.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Hall. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Marr.
I'd just like to make a quick point that that this report was between the over the January period, where things were certainly a lot more quiet than what they usually are. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Marr. C 3.2, rail stabling options. No one from the gallery want to talk on this item? No? May I have a mover? Councillor Ripper.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to move that Council receive the train stabling options study, January 2018, as provided as an attachment 1, and request the Chief Executive Officer to commence the advocacy program to secure state government funding.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Stevens? All in favour? Carried. Councillor Ripper.
Yes, I'd just like to speak on the train stabling in Sale. Now, most people want to know what's train stabling. Well, that means that the trains will emanate at the end of the day in Sale. And the idea of that happening will allow more trains to go to Sale to Melbourne, so that hopefully we'll have more trains. Now, the next thing that some of the residents will say, will they be noisy, where will they be, etc. Well, there has been a couple of areas, one being out in Warwick and the other area being across adjacent to the sale yards, which is industrial area. So that is the council's preferred location at present. And resulting in more trains, which to the area will assist with travel for jobs. People in Sale that haven't got a vehicle, or young people who may be going to TAFE in Terralgan or even going out to Churchill Uni will be able to connect with a train that will take them out there and bring them back at a reasonable hour. Also tourism, there's quite a few people who come from Melbourne. I've witnessed a number of people who put their bicycle on the train in Melbourne, come up and go on the rail trails in the area, have a meal in the local area, then jump back on the train, go back to Melbourne. And also, as I've mentioned, jobs, tourism and education, and if we have more trains, that will all interconnect. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Ripper. Item C 4.1, McMillan Crescent Yarram Special Charge Construction Scheme, Submissions Committee hearing. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, now I'm right. Yes, thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll move that Council receive and consider the report from the Submissions Committee in relation to the McMillan Crescent Yarram Special Charge Street Construction Scheme, and 2, having regard to the written objection opposing the proposed street construction scheme and the Submission Committee finding that the proposed special charge street construction scheme for McMillan Crescent Yarram has been prepared in accordance with the provisions of the Local Government Act 1989, Council determined that the objection should not stop the scheme being considered for adoption, and points 3 and 4 as set out in the agenda.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Marr. All in favour? Carried.
Yes, thank you,
Councillor
Mr Deputy Mayor. Obviously there's a second section to this matter that we'll deal with in a moment, but of course this Submissions Committee hearing was set up under Section 223 of the Local Government Act and allows for anyone who would like to make a submission in relation to the proposed scheme to do so. It should be noted that the Council received one objection to the proposal, but it wasn't actually to the entire scheme. It was only to part of the scheme. The submitter was happy for the scheme, which is mainly rather, to reseal or seal the pavement in McMillan Crescent Yarram and the end of Commercial Street, and that and their submission really only was concerning opposition to the proposal to put a footpath into the area as part of the scheme. So the Submissions Committee, of course, duly met and considered the submission and has now reported back in a favourable way for the scheme to proceed. So basically 1 out of something like about 20 people had made a submission, so it's very well received.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. C 4.2, McMillan Crescent Yarram Special Charge Street Construction Scheme, Declaration of Scheme. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. Well, following on from the previous report on the Submissions Committee, this report is now to move the objection. I'm going to move the motion because I'm speaking to it and not moving it. Yeah, sorry, Mr Deputy Mayor, I got a bit carried away then. I'll get a bit too excited. That the Wellington Shire Council, having noted one objection, was received within the requirements of sections 163A, 163B and 223 of the Local Government Act 1989, the Act, and otherwise according to law, and having, so far as can be ascertained from available records and can reasonably be concluded, ascertained that McMillan Crescent Yarram and a section of Commercial Street south of Duke Street, Yarram, which it is proposed the special charge will be declared, has not previously been instructed by way of a special rate or special charge, hereby declares a special charge under section 163(1) of the Act for the purposes of repaying with interest any loan raised by Council in relation to the pavement, ceiling and footpath construction in McMillan Crescent, Yarram, and Commercial Street south of Duke Street in Yarram, and the provision of any ancillary works. And points 2, 3, 4, and I don't know, is there another one? Oh, yes, right through till point 14, as set out in the agenda, be adopted. Thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hall. All in favour? Carried. Councillor Stevens.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. Now I'll go back to where I was. Yes, look, this is a really great scheme and a great outcome for the people who are living in McMillan Crescent and at the end of Commercial Street South in Yarram. The street has had curb and channel for many years, and yes, as now pictured on the screen, and the curb and channel has been sort of adversely affected by all the very large street trees. So a very opportune time for the council to go back to the people and talk to them about the actual sealing of the street and the upgrade of the whole area. So it will be a great outcome, and as part of it, as I alluded to before, there will be a footpath installed in that area, which is going to be a benefit to several elderly residents that are living in that area. And I think the people in that part of the town are very pleased to see this project proceeding. So it's a really good outcome, and it'll enhance the district, enhance that area particularly well. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Stevens. Item C, 4.3, road discontinuous, unused government road on Millers Road, Coongulla. Councillor Hall.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'm going to move that Council advise the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning that 1, pursuant to Section 349 of the Land Act of 1958, Council resolves to give its concurrence to the closing of a section of Government Road between Crown Allotment 10, Section C, and Crown Allotment 10A, Section C, in the parish of Coongulla, and shown red on the attached plans. And 2, pursuant to the Section 400 of the Land Act of 1958, Council gives notice that the section of Government Road between Crown Allotment 10, Section C, and Crown Allotment 10A, Section C, in the parish of Coongulla, is considered to be not required for public traffic and is therefore an unused road.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Ripper. All in favour? Carried. Councillor Hall.
Thank you once again, Deputy Mayor. Yeah, there's an unused road that is passing through a property. It hasn't been used as far back as from memory that anybody can recall. It's up there on the map. They can see where it's situated. But before it can be closed, the request came in from the owners of the land on which it's situated to purchase it from the Department of Environment, Land, Water and Planning, and the agreement to allow that to happen under the Land Act of 1958 is to come back to Council. And whilst we are not involved with any expenses nor any knocking on doors to advise the neighbours that such a thing is happening, the government department has to do that. But from our records, we have no objection whatever to that piece of land being sold to the landowner.
Thanks, Councillor Hall. Item C, 4.4, Riverview Road, Warwick, Special Charge Street Construction Scheme, Declaration of Scheme. Councillor Ripper.
Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor. I'd like to move that Wellington Shire Council, having noted no objections were received within the requirements of Section 163A, 163B and 223 of the Local Government Act 1989, the Act, and otherwise according to law, and having, so far as can be ascertained from available records and can reasonably be concluded, ascertained that the section of Riverview Road, Warwick, for which it is proposed, the special charge will be declared, has not previously been constructed by way of a special rate or special charge, hereby declares a special charge under section 1631 of the Act for the purpose of repaying with interest any loan raised by Council in relation to the construction of Riverview Road between Golding and Fisk Streets in Warwick and the provision of any ancillary works. Para 2, Para 3, Para 4, and we're going right through to Para 14 as read.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Hull, all in favour? Carried. Councillor Ripper.
Council considers that there will be a special benefit to the persons required to pay the special charge, because there will be a benefit to those persons that it is over and above or greater than the benefit that is available to persons who are not subject to the special charge. And the Council believes that, first of all, be reduction in dust, enhance the amenity and character of the land in the area, creation of improved riding service of the street, improve access egress from properties, improve road drainage and improve road safety. Therefore, it's reduction, enhance, creation of improved riding service and improve. So that will make that street and the residents happy people.
Thanks, Councillor Ripper. Item C4.5, place names community minutes. Is there anyone that wishes to speak at this item? No, might have a mover.
Yes, indeed.
Councillor McMillan.
Yes, Thank you very much. Council received a note the minutes of the Place Names Committee meeting held on the 27th of February 2018. 2. Apply to the Register of Geographic Names for the trafficable section of Earl Street west of High Street to be renamed Buntine Road and the section of Earl Street north of Victoria Street to be renamed Lear Lane, and that letters be sent to affected property owners outlining the history behind the names selected. 3. Approval is sought from the Office of Geographic Names to determine if the proximity of Bedgegood and Richardson Road is acceptable, and if so, then advertise the name Bedgegood Road, and if no negative responses are received within 30 days, then apply to the Register of Geographic Names to formalise this name. 4. That the proposed name does not reflect the usage of the pavilion, that the Register of Geographic Names is requested to formalise the name Maffra Recreation Centre as the pavilion name. 5. That the roads from Foster Street, Princess Highway through to Raymond Street, named the northern section of Park Street, Canal Road, and the western section of McMillan Street, have one single name being Grand Canal Drive, and that the Register of Geographic Names are requested to formalise the name. 6. That the name Pepper Hill Road be endorsed for a subdivision in Longford. 7. That the following Anzac names be added to the Wellington Shire Council approved roads name list for the locality of Hayfield in recognition of their service: Beatles, Royal Scott, Fitton, William Reid, Fitzpatrick, Samuel and brother Theodore, Hind, William and Pallot Ernest. Thank you.
Do we have a seconder? Councillor Marr. Anyone oppose the motion? All in favour? Carried. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you very much. Another busy time from the Place Names Committee, and if I could just explain some of the points that have been raised here. Point number two is in regard to Earl Street, which you, when you come into Woodside, you'll discover that the Princess Highway splits Earl Street into two. And to be quite frank, the street designations around Woodside are somewhat confusing, in particular in regard to Earl Street. Whilst in the past it might have been appropriate to call one Earl Street, I hope I've got the directions right, west, and Earl Street east, that may well be correct, and no longer can you actually place that, that suffix onto the name. You must have a different name both sides. And that is indeed responsible, because in the need to get an emergency service vehicle to that particular location, it must be clear to somebody that's not in our area but in another area where that ambulance needs to be directed. And so therefore it's important that you don't have road splits, this sort of north, south, east, west thing. So we did have to come up with a section of name. Now the name of Buntine has been placed forward. Buntines, of course, were the first, was a family of some note that lived for a while in the Woodside region. In fact, within the Woodside region, they had a child, and it is my understanding, and part of the historical record, that it was the first child of European descent that was within the area. Now, the family did ultimately move to the Rosedale area. She remarried, I think, and became a different name. I think that might be true. But the Buntines, and in fact to this day there are many Buntines that live around the area. So it was in Woodside where I guess the most significant part of their life, which was where they had a child in what was at the time a very inhospitable section of Gippsland. I think it's worthy that we recognise that, and I think that is a significant name which I think the people of Earl Street, I hope, will be proud of. We will do some more work with the people on Earl Street, talking to them about their road. I personally believe there needs to be some work done in regard to road maintenance. There is a number of people whose road driveways are actually said they're coming from the highway, but they're not. Anyway, it's a bit of a dog's breakfast, and I make a commitment that we'll go back and have that conversation. The next one, point 3, is in regard to Bedgegood Road. This has been an ongoing issue for some time. It's at Perry's Bridge. It's near the Perry's Bridge turnoff, and it's a smallish road which goes down to the creek, which the CFA uses to fill up their vehicles. We've tried Perry Bridge Road. We've tried, we tried an Indigenous name at one stage. We've tried several opportunities to get this name right. None of them have worked. It was suggested by one of the people there that we call it Bedgegood, after some people who lived there and contributed significantly to the local community. Unfortunately, there is a rule that says within I think a 20k radius you must not double up on roads. Bedgegood is actually a name that's in another area, but I think anyone who lives there knows that I think it's about 15k's away or something. Looking at my fellow members of the Place Names Committee, it's significant away, isn't it? It is. We all thought, look, it's far enough away that you would not make that mistake. So we're going to give this a whirl. We're going to put it up to the geographic names. We believe there would be no confusion. But look, if the geographic names come back to us, then so be it. The next one is in regard to the Maffra Recreation Centre, and this is again been a huge issue that the people of the people of Maffra have been involved in. I admit it's come back from the recreation. You may remember the story so far, for those of you following at home, that we went back to the Maffra Recreation Reserve Committee suggesting that the name that they had put forward was inappropriate. They suggested another name. We've actually decided that the appropriate name is the Maffra Recreation Centre, and the reason for that is when you look at when the centre was developed and designed and created and money was raised for that centre, it was raised with the express purpose of calling it the Maffra Recreation Centre. I point to raffle tickets that expressly say that this is for the Maffra Recreation Centre. So when people donated the money to that centre, they donated it for the Maffra Recreation Centre. And for us to then move over those many people that contributed financially to this, to discount their views, I think is incorrect. So we have decided to take the position that it was always called the Maffra Recreation Centre, and that is its most appropriate name. So we are going to send that off to the geographic names. I should state, however, that it is not our intent to necessarily place any physical signage around. That's, of course, the role of the management committees themselves. But I think it's appropriate that there is a name that it's known as, and Maffra Recreation Centre appears to be historically what it was. Grand Canal Drive, well, yes, indeed, this could well be something that it will create a bit of controversy within the town. I do acknowledge that. And I guess maybe we've overextended ourselves in calling it a Grand Canal Drive, but look, if my fate is to have overextended myself, to have perhaps talked up and overspun Canal Drive, then I'm guilty of that. I actually believe this drive is a wonderful one. I think it is a magnificent view. I enjoy it tremendously. I think it now comes across our art gallery and indeed our entertainment centre. It is a significant area, and I hope in the future that it will also lead us to the TAFE. So I think it is something at which we should be uniquely proud of, and therefore I'm happy enough with that name. The Pepper Hill Tree Road one, for number 6, that name was suggested by the developer in regard to the subdivision in Longford. It seemed appropriate to suggest that name. Might I mention and praise also in section 7 some of the work that Linda Barraclough and the Heritage Societies are doing in the development of recognition of names. We in the Place Names Committee have a lot of problem in finding names that are appropriate to our town. We believe quite strongly that people who've made a significant contribution by serving their country, and many of these men have died in battle, particularly at this time when we recognise the 100-year anniversary of the Great War, then I think it's more than appropriate that we consider roads to be named after them. They have made an absolute commitment to their region. They have served their country well, and I think it's appropriate that we find names for them in our streets. So it was, again, a very controversial and long Place Names Committee. I thank the other members of my committee for the hard work that they do, and indeed the officers that assist us. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCubbin. Item C 5.1, quick response grants.
I need to excuse myself. Sorry, I need to declare a conflict of interest due to a conflict of duty.
Thank you, Councillor Mark. Do I have a mover? Councillor Stevens.
Thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. I'll move that Council note the information regarding applications received under the Quick Response Grant scheme for the period November 2017 to February 2018 as at Attachment A. Thank you.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Rossetti. All those in favour? Carried. Councillor Stevens.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr Deputy Mayor. I believe the Quick Response Grant scheme is a very important part of the Council's activities, and also, of course, with our interaction with the community. And this gives many community organisations an opportunity to get funding for small projects. And I note that in this current round of funding approvals that we just adopted tonight, there were 14 community events that received a total of $23,960. 2 community projects that received $3,300. 3 facilities projects got $4,791. And of course, individuals can apply under the Quick Response Grant for a maximum, I think, of $500. I'm sure that's the maximum. And 1 individual received $500. So this program is, as I think, vitally important and gets a lot of work done. A lot of small grants, you have a look at the list, there's lots of community events that have benefited from this program, which obviously gives the community great pleasure, and I think also improves our relationships with the community in many ways. So thank you, Mr Deputy Mayor.
Thanks to Councillor Stevens. We'll just wait for Councillor Marr to come back into the room. Item D, urgent business. I believe we have none. Any chat room comments? None. I'd like to call now on anyone from the gallery that would like to speak. You'll have 3 minutes, and if you could please state your name for the record. Everyone yes, sorry. State your name.
It's probably well known by a lot, but I'll just do a brief that I've had a lot of trouble with cattle straying from my property. Part of the problem with that is that council road grader knocked down my fences, and also there was a problem with alignment of the road not being satisfactory to be able to establish a boundary fence, and I started trying to negotiate these matters from as early as the year 2000. I had numerous responses from council that they're not interested in mediating any of the problems that have been a response or been a consequence of their lack of action on my concerns. That notwithstanding that, council's also decided to send me to court. Here's one of the numerous documents that's been prepared by this council sending me to court after council's already imposed its own penalty. So this is double dipping, double penalising, when I'm the victim. I think this is a contemptuous act by this council, and I would urge that any activity of council that would result in someone going to court be put before the councillors and not just enacted by the CEO or the staff under the CEO, because I don't think that's a fair or democratic way of resolving issues, and especially in regard to it being double penalising. So I think I've been held in contempt by the executive side of this council, and I think the councillors themselves have been blinded by their loyalty to the CEO and the staff. And I've spoken on other occasions to indicate that I think it's a folly to unreservedly and unquestioningly take the advice of the council staff. As a result of that, this is my response to these documents, because this is about the value that the public would place on the way that Wellington Shire Council treats someone who they have wronged already. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Mills. Is there anyone else that would like to speak from the gallery?
Yvonne Martin again. I would like to speak regarding an agenda item from the council meeting of 6th of March. I wasn't able to be here for the last meeting, but I did look at this on video on council's website, and it's about the... I've been having some dialogue with Councillor McMillan regarding our objection to changing the name of the northern end of Park Street. And we've also discussed in passing our objection to the change in priority of the intersection in Park Street and Canal Road. Item A83 from these minutes, when it arose, should have been only about the changing of the name of the northern end of Park Street. But Councillor McMillan took it upon himself to include the place names opposition as a petition against the orientation of Canal Road and Park Street. Trust me, if this petition had addressed the orientation of Park Street and Canal Road, there would have been far more than 106 signatures. These are two entirely separate items of concern. We are aware that Council are not inclined to change the present orientation, and while we'd hope to settle this at a local level, are aware that we must take our concerns to a higher authority and are preparing to do this as we speak. In Councillor McMillan's explanation to Council regarding the history of the dispute at the last meeting, he used inaccurate, misleading and blatantly untrue statements to justify Council's decision to retain the orientation of this intersection, and I would appreciate the time to dispute each of these fallacious utterances. Councillor McMillan began with the statement, "Council has a clear obligation to safety," and while what has been done is to be commended for pedestrians, is not the case for drivers. In a letter to me regarding the intersection, the Mayor states, "The design conforms with relevant standards and appears to be working well." Although we have some complaints of individuals not obeying the road rules. Does this not indicate that the intersection, in fact, does not appear to be working well? There are drivers not obeying the road rules because, to the ad hoc user, what is required is not clear. You have attempted to fix a problem that did not exist. We were used to having a complete no-brainer standard T intersection that everyone understood. We now have this mishmash of painted islands, enigmatic road signs and, frankly, unmanageable squiggles, which are making lawbreakers of most of the drivers that have to cross the bridge. Challenge any one of you to go across the bridge without touching those painted islands. It's near impossible. And if you have a trailer on or a boat, caravan on the back, forget it. You're breaking the law. Councillor McMillan then goes to work on the priority road at present Canal Road and how it deserves priority because of traffic flow numbers. He refers to a traffic count that was taken between the 24th of January and on or about the 7th of February 2018, many, many months after the decision was made to make Canal Road the priority, and months after the intersection was completed. All council had before this was projected and imagined traffic flow. No detailed studies had been undertaken. This was all decided by, I presume, a consultant who did not consult, and council officers who also did not consult, and obviously have very little local knowledge of the area. The traffic count relied on to provide data to justify Canal Road as the priority road was frankly a grab at positive statistics. No matter that the traffic count was set up 2 days before the grand opening of the Wellington Centre, with, from your own reports, thousands of people attending and I suppose thousands of cars tripping those traffic counters. The figures quoted in the agenda for the meeting indicates that approximately 1,110 vehicles per day utilise Park Street north of Canal Road. What a load of rubbish. These are the engineered statistics taken from the belated traffic count, the one that included all the traffic, thousands of people, probably hundreds and hundreds of cars that came here for that opening day. Realistically, there's a flurry of activity in the mornings, a flurry in the afternoons, and most of the day you could fire a cannon up Canal Road and not hit anybody. The kids are at school, people are working. There is very little difference now to pre-changes, and I challenge you to prove me wrong. We also resent Councillor McCubbin's insinuation that our objection comes about because we now have a give way sign on the northern part of the bridge. How petty can you get? He states he finds it annoying to have to give way at the end of his road and assumes everyone else feels the same. We do not put that much importance on this, Councillor, because, as you fail to comprehend, there's not enough traffic coming along Canal Road to make it an issue. Councillor McCubbin is also excited that the buses are now using Canal Road. How little he knows of this area. School buses have been using Canal Road for years. The ones that are not needed are parked up for the day round near the dog training facility. Absolutely nothing has changed other than we now have a new Wellington Centre, lovely as it is. Traffic is as near to damn it as it ever was, and I'll admit that maybe Canal Road did have a greater traffic flow, but there is not a lot in it. Certainly not enough to warrant the debacle that currently exists. Councillor McCubbin then refers to the 11 people who are based around Park Street. 11 people. I know where this comes from. He was told by me that there are 11 residences on the southern side of the canal. There are actually 13, but even I'm wrong sometimes. And he has misinterpreted this to mean that there are 11 residents on the southern side of the canal. And he stacks the rights and requirements of these 11 residents against the fictitious thousands of people using Canal Road daily. He is completely unaware of each residence having at least one car. Most have 2, some have 3 or 4. Say there's an average of 2 cars per household, with each vehicle making 2 passes per day, in and out, through this intersection. That's a minimum of 52 passes daily through this intersection. Councillor McCubbin has also completely ignored the boat owners, most of whom check their boats daily. Say 15 boats, there's a lot more over there. 2 passes per day, 30 passes, that's 82 passes through this intersection across that bridge by regular users. It does not include the pleasure boaters, the caravanners, or the tourists that just want to have a look, or the people like me who pass 4 to 6 times a day. What makes this worse was that every councillor had access to the information I had provided to Councillor McCubbin, and not one of them questioned Councillor McCubbin's diatribe. I'm very disappointed, not particularly surprised, as this appears to be the way council operates, hence the poor regard with which our council is held. This council appears to be a closed club, and it's time to open it up. I can't understand how all of you seeming to totally accept his inaccurate and untrue references. And as stated before, we really would like this orientation fiasco dealt with at a local level, but it appears increasingly so that this is not going to happen. We have tried to speak with those involved and have been brick-walled at every turn. No discussion will be entered into, no changes will be made. This is what you've got, this is all you're getting, and that's it. But we're taking it further. Thank you.
Thanks, Mrs Martin. Anyone else for the yellow? Yep.
Alan Haywood, Pearsondale resident. I'm always reluctant to get up here and speak because I believe we who have concerns are frowned upon for supporting the ambitions of our Shire and for upsetting the ambitions of our Shire and its bureaucracy. Regarding Grand Canal Road, I made a contribution to this subject as soon as the topic arose, saying Grand Canal Drive was overstating the road with all its restrictions. I understand Grand Canal Road was suggested by one person against the recommendations of a number of people in a survey supporting Canal Road. Does our council want to dictate to the residents of the Shire what the Shire wants, or does the community have some influence on what goes on? I would have thought Councillor McMillan was obliged to consider the views of the community foremost, rather than his own views or the views of the Shire bureaucracy. This road is far from grand. It has an intersection with Raymond Street, which is not square or right angles. It has 3 raised walkways for pedestrians. And I've been told by the Shire that the objective with the planning in the future is to encourage most traffic to go around the block via the highway in Park Street to get to the canal. I've been coming to these Shire Council meetings a long time now and have learnt that results can be achieved by continuing to advocate or ask for a particular change or improvement over and over and over and over again. A couple of samples I've written down here tonight was the installing of the toilets near Raymond Street, which took a long time to come to fruition. The turning lane changes on the Raglan Street, Reeve Street intersection took a long time to achieve, and that was only by continually asking that these happened. There's a long list to go. Example, post office and the poor vision at roundabouts with the growth in them. So I've been encouraged by having those couple of wins, not both mine, but I've been encouraged that we've only got to keep asking over and over again and we might get there. If a group comes to you, the councillors, with legitimate concerns, please consider them and you may have some more happy ratepayers in your community. Thank you.
Thanks, Mr Haywood.
Hello, my name's Tracy Anton. I'm from the Wellington side of Coongulla. I'm just taking this opportunistic moment. I was just here to watch in the gallery tonight, but given we can have a chat, I'm currently facilitating a United Community Action Group at Golden Beach. Just taking this moment to let you know that we will be challenging Carbonet and some of their processes. So you're aware that there was property damage from the seismic survey? So this is the first time we've ever had a seismic survey so close into shore. So from Golden Beach part, it was 1 kilometre, And I'm very dismayed at the fact that part of their environmental plan didn't even include any potential for geological hazards, given that that's a very fragile area of the 90 Mile Beach. And so it has been recorded that one of their project officers on the radio said when they did find out people were hearing the noise and the booms, they put in some noise monitors and found out that it was no more than traffic noise, of course, which people aren't used to down there. But I did not know traffic noise could cause property damage. So you need to know that there's processes that have occurred down there that have not been properly assessed as to their potential risk. So that's one of the things. One of the other issues, there's a lot of absentee people down there who have no idea that the seismic survey was occurring. Now, what we found within community engagement is that, the community are a stakeholder, and here we have a means of a government project being an action has a right to inform every landowner or specific stakeholder. And so many people were not informed, and of course you probably are all aware of the division and the unrest that was caused down there. So one of my sort of projects that I would like this to be a positive improvement on what's happened in the past is that Councillor Hall, you're one of the representatives down there, are you, for that ward, is it? Yes. You advocate with the community, because I believe it's time for the 3 tiers of government to work with the people on these sort of projects, because they have a right to be informed, but we get all these reasons why each group or government body can't, and that's not their right, and there's privacy issues. So there comes a time now that that's not our problem. It's not the community's problem, it's government's problem on a project. So that's something that I'd like you to work with the state and the federal government on that. So I'll leave that there because there'll be more coming. We'll keep you informed. Just another opportunistic point with the Coongulla chicken farm. There's 2 sheds up at the moment. I'd just like you to know that I was involved in the objections and went to VCAT and the interactions with council. My major concern is that a lot of the surrounding farms were under the impression that they could get cheap or free manure. So part of your environmental plan is that you don't, you've got to get that manure off-site. But once it left that farm gate, apparently it was okay to go anywhere else around that area. Well, being a farm around there, I don't want to live within that smell. So I've been doing ongoing work with the intensive animal industries and putting submissions in. So my big issue is that when it leaves the farm gate, it be picked up by a licensed contractor and it be delivered to a licensed receiver. But apparently that's a little bit difficult for that to happen. So at the VCAT hearing, the council officer did say, when I actually asked the barrister to bring that up, and he said that that's not our problem. We can't manage that. That's too hard. Well, if you're going to give out a permit, yes, it is a problem. If we have 4 chicken, potential industries in this area, chicken litter will become a big problem. So that's something, again, that I'd like you to be aware of. This is ongoing, and that's part of my focus at that. It's a very simple thing that anything comes in the future, that a condition be picked up by a licence, go to a licence. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. Is there anyone else from the gallery that'd like to say anything? If not, I'll declare the meeting closed at 7:08. Thank you.